Welcome back, ladies and gents, to another episode of Rank 'Em All. And in today's video, we're going to rank the American thrash metal band Forbidden's full discography. And these Bay Area Thrashers originally went under the name Forbidden Evil, but before the release of their 1988 debut album, they shortened their name to Forbidden. And they disbanded after their fourth studio album Green back in 1997, and then they did a short comeback in 2001, and another comeback in around 2007 that led to the release of their comeback album Omega Wave. And due to this inactivity, they have been in the shadows of their neighbors Testament, Death Angel and Exodus, that has been way more active in recent years. And if you're a Forbidden or a thrash fan in general, then smash that like button and make sure that you're subscribed, because more Rank 'Em All videos are coming up soon. So stay tuned for that. And now it's time to rank Forbidden's full discography. The worst Forbidden album is, in my opinion, Green, and it must have been the first time in about 20 years that I've listened to this album, because I remember that I hated this album when I first heard it. I thought it was one of those horrible modern metal albums that were so frequently released during the 90s. And I can't say that I've changed my mind about this record upon returning to it. It really lacks the thrashing intensity of some of their other albums. The album is also rather atmospheric, and it has this 90s sound to it. There are lots of grunge and groove metal influences here, which was quite common amongst the old thrash metal bands in the 90s. And we saw everyone from Anthrax to Death Angel and Overkill walking down similar paths. So the fast guitar riffs had been replaced by slower and more grinding riffs. And when I put together this rank, it was clear to me that Green was Forbidden's worst album. I think it's a stinker, and it's probably one of the 10 worst albums ever put out by a respectable thrash metal band. Because they really fell into the alternative metal trap that so many bands fell into during the 90s. And I think that this sounds more like the follow-up to Nirvana's Nevermind than the band that once recorded Forbidden Evil and Twisted into Form. Green is a complete train wreck of an album. It's almost as bad as a Saint Anger or a Risk. They even had a song on this album called Fat, spelled with a PH. So if you find a copy of this album, burn it. Next. In fourth place we have Distortion, and it came out in 1994, 3 years before Green. But you could already on this album see that the band was devolving from being the next big thing in thrash to starting to incorporate some groove metal ideas. But fortunately for everyone involved, the band never sunk as low as on Green, and you can at times still recognize the band on this album. I would put Distortion in the same category as Flotsam and Jetsam's third album, When the Storm Comes Down, or Sacred Reich's Independent, or Exodus Force of Habit. Early to mid-90s albums that clearly was a departure from their thrashing past, but still heavy enough for the band to be still somewhat recognizable. So let's just call it a semi-sellout. Do I hate Distortion? Not really. Would I recommend it to anyone? No. It just sits there and it's quite meaningless in my opinion. Was it a disappointment when it came out 4 years after Twisted into Form? Most definitely. So, next. In third place we have the 2010 comeback album Omega Wave. And when it came out it got some good reviews, and I listened to it a couple of times when it came out, but then I kinda forgot about it. And now when I've been listening back to it for the first time in years, I can't say that it has aged that well. It was more modern sounding than I remembered it to be. The playing is still pretty decent here, and I think this is better than those mid-90s records. But sound-wise, I think that this album is somewhere in between Distortion and Twisted into Form. It's an alright comeback album, but for me it's no way near the first two records in terms of quality. So, next. In second place we have Twisted into Form from 1990, and this album is in my opinion a masterpiece. The guitar work on this album is remarkable, the drumming is tight, the bass slaps, and the vocal performance is great. Russ Anderson is just one of the most underrated vocalists out there, and he has a great clean voice, and he can really hit those high notes without much effort. And I just love everything about this record. We have so many good songs on it. Like Infinite, Out of Body, Out of Mind, Step by Step, Twisted into Form and R.I.P. This album is just stuffed with great thrash songs. And it's a rather technical album as well, with Russ Anderson's soaring vocals on top of that. It's just perfection. And I would probably rank Twisted into Form in my top 5 when it comes to thrash metal albums that were released in the 90s. I also hold it as one of the best Bay Area thrash records, but still, it's just my number 2, because the greatest Forbidden album is in my opinion their 1988 debut album Forbidden Evil. And just like Twisted into Form, we're talking about a masterpiece here. And the reason why I prefer Forbidden Evil over Twisted into Form is because it has this youthful energy to it. It's wilder and the aggression feels less controlled here. And it's not like it's lacking on Twisted into Form, but Forbidden Evil is just more raging speed and aggression. And Twisted into Form feels more mature in its approach. And the debut is more wild and possibly even faster. Chalice of Blood is one of the most insane thrash metal songs ever written. Russ Anderson's voice just shatters glass in that one. And speaking of glass, Through Eyes of Glass is another masterpiece. And we also have Forbidden Evil, March into Fire and Feel No Pain. Just incredible thrash songs. Forbidden Evil is not far away from being up on my top 10 thrash metal albums of all time list. It's just that good. The guitar work is insane. Just look at the Ultimate Revenge 2 video. That was released a year after this album came out. It's one of the best live shows ever caught on tape in my opinion. And I can put a link to it in the video description if you want to check it out. Watch that, and if you don't become an instant Forbidden fan, then you might as well go back to watching cat videos instead of this channel. Because Forbidden really looked like they could have been the next big thing to come out of the Bay Area. But then the thrash metal wave died out and Forbidden released some substandard albums in the mid-90s. So everything went away in just a few years. So let's check out my full Forbidden rank then. And I think that Forbidden was one of the most talented thrash bands that I've ever witnessed. But due to the change in trends and the direction of the band, they kinda screwed up their career after the release of Twisted into Form. Around the same time when their drummer Paul Bostaph left to join Slayer. But I don't think that was the main reason for their decline. It had more to do with the change of trends. And unfortunately Forbidden lost their identity when that happened. But in their prime, Forbidden was one of the best thrash metal bands that the world had ever seen. And I still listen to their first 2 records from time to time. And I've done so for decades now, so they definitely stand the test of time. For me, this was one of the easiest discographies to rank, since the quality of the records spanned from mediocre to goddamn masterpieces, with the first 2 standing tall above the rest. And now I'm curious to hear your opinions on Forbidden. How would you rank their catalog, and which album is your favorite? Let me know down below. And if you're a Forbidden fan, then smash that like button and subscribe with the bell notifications turned on. And you can always become a Patreon if you enjoy my work, like these fine gentlemen. Or go and grab yourself some merch at the Ruthless metal store. And you can find all my links listed down below. And let me know whose discography I should rank in the next episode of Rank 'Em All. And that's all folks, so thanks for watching and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye bye.